was not pretty. There was a lot of rain. There was a lot of penalties. But the Falcons eked out a 5-point win over Tim Boyle and Trevor Siemian and the New York Jets, 13-8. We're going to kind of recap this game. We're going to run through the injury news coming out because, unfortunately, Atlanta does limp out of this game with some major injuries, and we'll get you updates from Arthur Smith. But let's run through a little bit of the stats right now. As Desmond Ridder did just enough yet again, this was an ugly game. There's no way around it. This is not a game that anyone should rewatch. This is not a game that if it pops on NFL Network in April, you should be like, oh, I want to relive this moment. No, this was bad on all fronts. Desmond Ridder and the Falcons had 3 fumbles. There were fumbles all over the place, 7 in total. But ultimately, Atlanta's defense, which has not allowed a touchdown for 9 straight quarters since Clayton Tune scored for the Cardinals in the 3rd quarter before the bye. So almost a month ago at this point, shut down the Tim Boyle-led New York Jets offense. And in my preview video, I said, you have nothing to fear. And everyone said I would jinx it. Well, how the turntables. No. Tim Boyle was awful. They benched him for Trevor Siemian. He was equally awful. The Jets are awful. And yeah, it was probably a little bit closer than I would have liked. Just 5 points over a Jets team. But Atlanta improves to 500. Takes sole possession of first place in the NFC South after the Saints lost to the Lions. And there are some positives that do come out of this game. But who was your MVP from today's game? There were some guys that I thought played really well. And before I give you my MVP, I do want to know who your MVP was down below in the comment section. For me, the MVP would actually be Arnold Ebiketie on the Falcons defense. He's had a lot of sacks the last couple of games. Former day 2 pick out of Penn State has really stepped up as of lately. Also, Bud Dupree stepped up very nicely. Jesse Bates stepped up. In fact, we can look at the Jets offense altogether against this Atlanta defense. And the Jets offense, like every game this year, had nothing going. 197 yards through the year, probably more than they anticipated. 25 carries for 62 yards. Breece Hall was put into a telephone booth. That was the Atlanta Falcons run defense. 3 takeaways, an interception from Jesse Bates yet again. Nate Landman, and we'll talk about all the injuries in just a moment. He forced a fumble that set up MyCole Pruitt for a touchdown. And this Atlanta defense, it's not maybe textbook. It's been, fluid all year long, but they dominated the Jets. I mean, everyone's sort of taken their turn with the Jets the last couple of weeks as they have lost 5 in a row at this point. But give a lot of credit to Ryan Nielsen and this Falcons defense when they were looking at 4-6 coming into the last stretch of the year, out of the bye, losing to the Cardinals on the road. They've won 2 in a row, and now they're going to try to do something they have not done all season long, win 3 in a row. But let's run through some of the injury news here. Okay, so A.J. Terrell, he suffered a concussion. He did not return in the game. Clark Phillips, the rookie out of Utah, I thought he played very well filling in for Terrell. Hopefully, A.J. Terrell will be back sooner rather than later. Now, Caleb McGarry and Nate Landman, your starting right tackle and your starting middle linebacker, they both suffered knee injuries. Storm Norton filled in very nicely for McGarry at right tackle, and then Nate Landman, he went down in the 4th quarter with a knee injury. Andre Smith kind of filled in for him. Arthur Smith sounded optimistic that both guys did not suffer major or long-term injuries, but they're probably going to get some MRIs once the swelling goes down tomorrow, and we'll get more definitive answers. But, excuse me, the Falcons lost 3 starters throughout this game for a team that, outside of Grady Jarrett, has been extremely healthy, thankfully, all season long. They kind of got some injuries catching up to them in this win over the Jets, but hopefully no one is out more than a week or 2 max. Now, we're going to talk about Kyle Pitts and Desmond Ridder and the rest of this offense in just a moment, but I want to show some love to our awesome sponsor here at Falcons Today, and that is Prize Picks. I'm watching Sunday Night Football right now. In fact, we'll show you my Sunday Night Football selections in just a moment, but let me tell you first what Prize Picks is. All you do is just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and the more players you select, that increases your potential winnings. So let's check out my Sunday Night Football selections and see how I'm faring so far. I took the less on Jordan Love's passing yards as he just completed a pass to his tight end. Took the more on Patrick Mahomes' passing yards. Took the less on both Rashee Rice and Christian Watson. So potentially by the time you're watching, this has not aged very well, or it's aged like a fine wine. Whatever happens, go to Prize Picks, ride with me, or fade me. Make your own selections by going to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Now, that link is in the comments and description of today's video. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Desmond Ridder threw the only touchdown of the game to MyCole Pruitt right before the end of the first half. 121 yards, 1 touchdown. Penalties definitely aided the Falcons offense. I don't think there's any secret about that, but it was ugly. I feel like every single team at some point in the year is going to play an ugly game, whether it's weather, officiating, or just no one's really on their A game. And you don't apologize for wins in this league. So you hope you win those ugly games. Because I'll tell you what, there is nothing worse than losing, other than losing ugly games. Because then you come out of that with no clear direction. Atlanta definitely does not want to relive this game every single Sunday, but they'll take their win and they'll go back home and they'll move on. Bijan was called on once again early and often. We've seen an uptick in his usage over the last 2 games. 18 carries, 53 yards. But I think the biggest low-key star of this game was Drake London ran into a really good Jets secondary. So who stepped up for number 5? How about his teammate, Kyle Pitts? 4 grabs, 51 yards. He got a lot of targets. I know 4 grabs for 51 yards might not jump off the box score, but watching the game, those were an impactful 51 yards. It definitely set up Younghoe Koo to get some nice field goals in. And when they weren't receiving balls to Kyle Pitts, Bradley Pinion was playing maybe the best game of his season so far. He was called on a lot, and he kept pinning the Jets back deep and deep and deep. So let's look at the updated NFC playoff picture right now. The Eagles lost to the 49ers, but they still have a 1-game lead in the NFC for the bye. The 49ers come in next. The Lions are at 9-3, and the Falcons sit at 6-6 for the final spot of all 4 division winners. That would put them on a collision course to play the Cowboys, which is looking more and more likely as long as Atlanta holds on to their spot in the NFC South. The Vikings had the day off. They stood at 6-6. The Rams sneak in at number 7. They've won 3 in a row right now. They took down the Browns. Ultimately, Atlanta's defense knew this game was going to be ugly. It's like Kramer in Seinfeld. He's a mutter. His mother's a mutter. His father's a mutter. This game was ugly. No one was there. It was pouring. There were flags all over the place. But Arnold Ebiketie and this defense, they rose up to the occasion, right? They took control of this game when they had to at the end. Never had a fear that the Jets were going to drive down and score a touchdown. So shout out to Ebiketie and this defense. 9 straight quarters without allowing a touchdown. That's 2 games and change. Hopefully they can continue that into the next game. But let me ask you this question before I let you go and enjoy the rest of your Sunday night. Will the Falcons make the playoffs? I think they will make the playoffs. Give me your opinion down below. And make sure to subscribe, by the way, to the channel. We're going to continue to grow here. And if we get more subscribers, I can get more studio space and we can get you guys more content all week long. So help us grow. If you have not subscribed yet, go ahead and do so. Enjoy the win, ATL, and rise up.